Hello, everyone, and welcome to Light News Radio Realms of Self-Empowerment. Today is November 23rd, 2018, and I'm so happy to bring you another show. I have a little promo to read here. Welcome to Light News Radio, now in our 5th year, bringing you conscious awareness and discussion on the mind, body, and spirit connection. I am Dr. J, your host, and my amazing co-host is Deirdre Layton, although today she's on travel, so she trusts me to handle the entire show today. That is trust. Together, we bring you grounded metaphysics where the spiritual rubber hits the road, real-life teachings and applications that are pertinent and relevant to you. Here you can breathe the fresh air of real conscious education while avoiding the hype and the fascination. We are all about helping you to empower your life through understanding your true spiritual nature. So come aboard our beam of light and enlighten your load as we travel the ways of knowledge for the next hour. And today is the full moon, what is called a beaver moon. The moons have different names all throughout the year. And we are so delighted to come to you again with a great show of Light News Radio. We are in our 5th year of broadcasting. We've have had some pretty amazing guests on our show as well, and we will continue to do so as we enter the new year. If you have any comments, please let us know. Please like and share, and we hope to be able to hear from you during the show. I'm looking here to see if we also have a few comments as well. You should know that our last couple of shows have been highly successful in that we have asked people to come on and ask for readings and for comments and so forth. So we're very, very happy to have you. So today's show is about integrative chakra therapy. It's something that I have been teaching now for 20 years. And I started teaching workshops and doing flower readings and so forth in the very early part of the 90s. So I've been around when a lot of this type of work was very new, where it was in its infancy, past life readings, crystals, when the whole life expos in the late 80s were just really starting to get their energy going. Of course, now it has evolved into so many different types of healing fairs and different modalities. And not only to mention that along with that, there has been a lot of work going on in the science of the subtle energy of the human being. And so not only has our ability to perceive our spiritual nature, taken leaps and bounds in people that are practitioners of work, whether you're an acupuncturist or a chiropractor or spiritual healer as I am, but also the science now that is proving the human biofield really does exist. One of my main teachers is Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama. He passed in about 3 years ago. And his main passion was actually to be able to prove the existence of a subtle energy body, that there really was an individuated body in the higher dimensions. Of course, as you know by now, when you're listening to Light News Radio, we do talk about things of this nature in terms of the paradox that they represent. You think about how can you have a uniqueness when in just the next dimension, in the astral dimension, there's no space or time. So those two things really can't stand together, but they do. And that's where a lot of us are just really beginning to embrace and to understand that it is in fact true. But sometimes, we have difficulty understanding it, even though being unique and having an expression of a body in a non-physical dimension are just two sides of the same coin. They're both true, but difficult for us to understand. So even so, as science is proving this to be true, we still have some difficulty understanding it. So we'll keep you posted as the science becomes more and more known. Even the technique that I've been teaching for 20 years, integrative chakra therapy, I presented at a symposium last July at the California Institute for Human Science, which is my alma mater. I still work there. And I presented statistically provable information that integrative chakra therapy actually works as a healing modality. This and many other forms of healing modalities are now being proven to be real, and it is you and I coming into a higher level of understanding that we really do have a multidimensional nature. Well, why would you want to know that? Because the whole underpinning of these teachings is that we live in oneness. There really is no separation, that everything really is frequency, energy, and vibration. As you've heard many times, you may not have known that Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein are the ones that said that, but at the same time, that there really is no separation. So, for instance, in my form of healing that I teach, our ability to work on someone is not dependent upon the distance. It could be any distance. If I'm in San Diego and I want to work on somebody in Paris, France, that's no problem whatsoever. And so if you continue to embrace this to its next logical step, then it means you're a part of all love, all wisdom, all will, of everything there is that the universe to offer. So there is no fear of lack. There is no fear of scarcity, even if you just relate it to the word energy. Nikola Tesla said, energy is everywhere abundant. And he said things like he didn't necessarily completely tap into this awareness, but he knows that it exists. That's why he was able to pump energy into the ground in one place, and somewhere else you could take it out of the ground because the ground was just full of energy. And so our universe is full of energy, full of knowledge, full of wisdom, full of love, and full of this oneness of which we all represent. What's interesting to me is that with this modality where I have been checking in on the Light News radio webpage, this is the first time I'm broadcasting from the actual computer instead of my phone, is I don't see anything coming up on the phone as far as, people who are watching the program. So this is where my amazing assistant, Deirdre Layton, comes in and says, well, you need to have something on the phone going, or you need to have something else. So, I do have a PhD, honest, really, I could show it to you. But for certain things, we're still learning, especially social media network. I always say, if your computer's not running or you have problems with your phone, just find any 13-year-old and they can fix it exactly and right away. So excuse me one moment while I look up these posts, because I want to be able to react to you and also to ask you to please share and follow so that we gain a wide audience here. So I don't see anything on here on the phone. So with that stated, I'm just going to continue. So today's topic is about integrative chakra therapy. Where did that come from, and why do we call it that? Part of the reason is when I first started teaching this form of healing, people asked me, where does it come from? How did you begin to teach this? Did you learn it from some other teacher? So no, these are not teachings that have been handed down from some other person to me. About 90 to 95% of this work came from in here, came from my own meditations. When I started really doing or facilitating healing work was around 1991, 1992, when I joined a spiritualist ministry with Universal Church of the Master, where in spiritualism, you are asked to develop your intuitive skills, but also your spiritual healing power skills. In those days, we would have people sit on a chair and we would just simply put our hands on the shoulders and do what's called hands-on healing. And that was just being a conduit. And so I was very fascinated how that actually worked. How did that energy flow through me? Where did it come from? Where does it go? And what was actually happening? So in that instance, when I started doing this work, I became fascinated with how would I actually want to start teaching that? And so in those days, when I started teaching students how to do this work, I was calling it spiritual healers training for the whole human being. The reason for that is because the words whole human being mean mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. These are the four archetypes of what it is to be a whole human being. And when all of those four archetypes are flowing congruously, we notice that as very good health. You notice also that the tarot deck, the minor arcana, are divided into wands, cups, swords, pentacles, and those are also representative of these four archetypes. Well, I had been teaching for a number of years, And my assistant Deirdre has been just amazing at looking at how we can get this course of study accredited so that we can then offer continuing education units to massage therapists, to nurses, to acupuncturists, and to other modalities that can incorporate the healing based on the chakras into their modality. And so in order to do that, we couldn't use words like spiritual because it sounded too religious. Now, anybody that's listening to this knows that that's basically what it is. But in this world of being the way it is, we had to use other words. So we came up with many titles, and you know me with my poor sense of humor. You may have some grins or some feelings of pain as I attempt a humor, but I was joking to my students. I said we should call it Dr. J's Hoo-Ha Healing because that would really be popular. Well, somehow that didn't go over. So we wanted to pick a name for this type of healing that incorporated the elements of what it was. So integrative, because integrative means how all of the aspects of healing, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, how all of those coalesce into one healing from their 4 archetypes. Chakra, integrative chakra, because that is the basis of the type of work that I've been facilitating. And I started studying the chakras in the late 80s and have been, and I still am ever since. Wrote a couple of books about it, which you probably know. And then the word therapy means that in this society, you know, if you are a medical doctor or an acupuncturist from an approved body, then you can use the words healing or healer. Otherwise, you cannot. So we can use words like therapy. So integrative, chakra, therapy seemed to hit the mark pretty well, although I'm always looking for an acronym that suits it. I like ICT, but I'm thinking maybe one of you inventive people can come up with an even better way of phrasing integrative, chakra, therapy. So where did it begin? My work started with trying to understand what a chakra actually is, because when most people think of that word, they think of what they read: energy centers in the body, vortexes, you know, spinning wheels of light. And if you look at a lot of the publications that are out in the world today, they will tell you a Sanskrit symbol, a color, a keynote, a nervous plexus, a meridian system that's served by the chakra, but not really so much what is the psychology of the chakra. You know, what does it really do beyond feeding certain parts of the body? And now there is scientific work that's out there too, that's looking from an acupuncturist point of view as to how the chakras are hitting the personality aspects of a person. So I'm very pleased to see this work going on out there. So the nature of the energy that flows through the chakra affects these 4 archetypes. So you have 7 chakras that are lined up more or less along with the column of the spine, right? You have the root, the 2nd chakra, which is where below the navel, the 3rd chakra, which is above the navel or solar plexus. You have the heart chakra, this one right here, of course, the throat chakra. You have the 3rd eye chakra or the brow center, and you have the crown chakra. And so each one is possessed of different intuitive abilities, different aspects, how it affects those 4 archetypes: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And I wanted to know, was there a classification as to how those chakras actually affect our beingness? And so in those days, in the early part of the 90s, late 80s, I started doing readings. I started with tarot card readings that went to direct intuitive readings and spiritual counseling sessions. And I was able to view the chakras, although not directly with my physical eyes, but with my inner eyes, I could see the chakras. And so I started noticing that one chakra might be a little bit more dominant than the others. While all chakras are open, chakras are never blocked or closed, but while the chakras are open, most of them are dormant, which is not bad or good. And so I noticed that one chakra might be more dominant than the others, just like, you know, you might be right or left-handed, so to speak. There's nothing wrong with your non-dominant hand. It just may not be the one that you use. And so I started noticing these dominances and then traits with the dominance: the second chakra, the creator; the third chakra, the manifester; the fourth chakra, the person of purity; the fifth chakra, the one who comprehends, and so forth. And this turned into the release of my first book in 2004 called Eye of the Lotus: Psychology of the Chakras. And while I was beginning to teach students how to do healing work, I was incorporating this knowledge of the chakras into the work. In fact, as the basis of the work, which was assessing the chakras first with your own intuitive abilities, and then moving on towards higher and lower aspects of the chakras, interpretations, and then how it affected those four archetypes. Interesting too, because in the next quarter at CIHS, California Institute for Human Science, I am going to be teaching a class anybody can sign up for called, interestingly enough, Psychology of the Chakras. And by the way, our website is www.lightnews.org, lightnews.org, and our phone number is 877-242-5721. Email info@lightnews.org. And so when working with the chakras, I decided to start training healers. So I think it was early 1999, I had my first group in San Diego. And I thought, having been a former engineer, which I will get to later, I thought being a former engineer, I would just be able to teach it in two levels, beginning for one weekend, and then they work on, what I've taught them based on the chakras and the human biofield and so forth. And then the next time we get together, they take an advanced course. So thinking like an engineer, I thought, oh, certainly that's enough. They will totally understand. Not to be the case. And so they asked me, well, we'd like to know more about this, and we'd like to know more about the Sushumna, we'd like to know more about how to take a person out of body, and so forth. So to make a long story shorter, I ended up creating 17 levels, and a couple of levels were taught in a weekend, and then every 3 months we would take a weekend of training. In other words, the time in between was for practice, just like if you were learning a musical instrument, or if you were learning some, let's say, martial arts, you would take a couple levels, then you would practice and have proficiency and so forth. So that evolved into now what is an 18-level course that takes a little over 2 years. And I've been wrestling with two things over these years. One is, there's a lot of offerings today for a person to come for a weekend and learn some spiritual healing technique, and be done in a weekend. And I've had reluctance to shorten my program. I'm still wrestling with it because think of it as learning a martial art or learning a musical instrument. It takes time to fully integrate those teachings into a safe model for the practitioner so they can really, truly, completely learn. They have to do a number of reflective practices, where they're given a form to fill out as to what the practice was. A number of them have to be completed. And there's also testing involved now. We have to do this because I have to be able to know that the practitioners are proficient at what they're doing. So that was one thing. Is I'm still not at the place yet where I feel I can shorten this, although we are making modules where a person can obtain a healing proficiency, then go to a practitioner proficiency, and then so forth. And ultimately, if a person wants to learn to be an instructor of ICT, integrated chakra therapy, they can do that. We graduated our first group of instructors this year, 4 instructors and 2 more instructors, possibly 3. That would be you, Celeste. That is going to come on and take the course of learning how to teach what I teach. So the second is there are so many offerings today online where a person can go for distance learning. Certainly, you've seen how many colleges and universities are offering distance programs for the various courses that they offer. And certainly, 95% of those, I'm sure you could be taking online, but you couldn't take things online like golf, bowling, archery. These are things where you have to be present. You have to really have the instructor there with you. So we are working on some distance programs for ICT so that you can take some of the modules online, and then some of the modules you simply come in for a retreat weekend where we work together. There are ways that this can be done remotely, but I don't know if the whole program can be done remotely. We're still working on that. And if you have any questions, either email me at info@lightdews.org, or I'm looking online here on my handy little phone here to see if anybody has come in, and I don't see anything yet. So this is a new experience for me. The last couple of times that we did Light News Radio, in fact, the last 4 times, we were on my own personal Facebook page, and we had a scrolling list of people on the right here who were coming in and who were liking the page and so forth. So this is new and this is different for me. And so another aspect of ICT is how it's taught in order to be effective, because people regularly come to our free clinics. We have clinics twice a month in San Diego on the 1st and 3rd Mondays in La Mesa, and we have clinics on the 2nd and 4th Monday of the month in Calgary, Canada. The ones in Calgary start at 7, the ones in San Diego start at 6:30. And we have quite the long list of people that come for healing, but a lot of times people are wondering, okay, what's involved? How do you explain it from one person to another? And so this type of therapy work is 2 parts. One is we have you on a table where we are working on you and doing the energy work assessment. The practitioner takes a look at the chakras, not too much different than when you go to the acupuncturist. You know how they will put their fingers on your wrist and take 6 or 9 or 12 measurements. None of those pulses physically exist. You go to a Tibetan doctor, you go to an acupuncturist, and they take these pulses, but not one of them physically exist. So it's the same thing when our practitioners are observing the chakras. It's not something that is physically there, but at the same time can be measured by a proficient practitioner. So what they're doing when, let's say, you on the table, what they're doing is they're looking at the 7 chakras and they're determining which one might be more dominant than the others. And they look to see if it's over-functioning or under-functioning, and the same thing with the other 6 chakras. They're looking to see how they're doing as well. So while they're doing this work, they're making an assessment, no different than if you went to a medical doctor or acupuncturist, naturopath. They would be making an assessment of, what is the nature of your overall health. So that's the first part, is the assessment, and then the actual healing is they allow a form of energy to flow through them called psi energy. I didn't invent the word PSI. No, it doesn't mean pounds per square inch. It was a term coined by one of my teachers, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, who I mentioned earlier. And the difference is the psi energy of the chakras creates the chi from the chakras that flows through the meridians, the interstitial tissues, to the organs, and so forth. So the psi energy in your 3rd chakra, the solar plexus chakra right here above the navel, that will go to your 3rd chakra, the solar plexus chakra. That chakra will then convert it into chi. You've heard of chi, ki, orgone, mesmer, prana. It's all names for the same thing. Once it's converted, the chi then goes to the spleen, and the spleen puts the chi in the blood. So we work on a level called the psi level, PSI, which means the chakras and above, and that's referring to beyond time and space. So that's what makes this healing so powerful, is because it can be done at any distance, close up, or doesn't matter where you are. And so the practitioner observes the condition of your chakras, and then if energy work is needed, they act as a conduit. Because in truth, no one heals you. You only heal yourself. It doesn't matter if you go to the reflexologist, the iridologist, the massage therapist, the acupuncturist, what I do. Basically, we are all conduits that allow the healing energy, if you want to call it love, if you want to call it God's energy, if you want to call it the creative force of the universe, but we don't actually flow the energy from ourselves. The energy flows through us as a conduit, or you can think of it as a lens. You know, a clear lens adds nothing to the light, but can focus the light through it. So basically, all that ever really happens, no matter what type of healing that you're looking for, all it does is flow through the practitioner as a lens, a conduit, funnel, and you're basically just healing yourself. In fact, when you find the healer and you're the person who desires healing, on some level of your being, my opinion is that we call the healers into our lives, even if you don't know that person, even if you're meeting them for the first night, even if you come on Monday nights to our free healing clinics, not knowing exactly what to expect, you're still calling that healing into your life. And for the benefit of the possibility of letting go of a limiting belief system, some physical problem, mental, emotional issues, whatever the case may be, anything can be healed. The problem we have with healing is that sometimes certain things are not ready to be healed. They're not meant to be healed yet. Sometimes if you study karma and reincarnation like I have for many years, ever since the early 90s, I've been teaching. In fact, right now, I'm just almost finished teaching a 10-week course called Past Lives Karma and the Survival of Consciousness at CIHS. And so that's why sometimes we have a struggle with healing, is because according to certain karmas, it takes a while for certain things to heal. Not everything heals right away, and that's very difficult for us. And I'm entirely in sympathy and empathy with those of you who have some problems. But there's nothing wrong with going to receive healing. So the person on the table is assessed by the practitioner, which chakras are which, according to how they affect the 4 archetypes. Chakras are excess, deficient, and so forth. And then they allow that healing energy to flow through them. And then they make another assessment. They look and see, did everything stay the same? Did everything change? And so forth. And then from there, once they're done and the person sits up on the table, the healer, the practitioner, makes an assessment, a verbal assessment, says, okay, here's what's going on with you and why. Here's what you can do about it. Here's how to go about doing it. So think of it as the practitioner is there to give you a tool so that you can use it yourself. So you go and you get a healing facilitated, and then the practitioner says, okay, when you do this, this will help you empower yourself. This will make you stronger, and so forth. So it's not a psychic reading. The assessment is based on the evaluation that the practitioner did when they were facilitating the energy work flowing through them to the chakra centers of the person on the table and to their glands, organs, and so forth, the energy body, the biofield, all of that. So this is the 2 parts to ICT that makes it so powerful. 1 is the actual assessment and energy work. 2 is the actual verbal assessment afterwards, when the person is sitting up on the table and listening attentively to what the wonderful practitioner is telling them. So our healing clinics are very, very positive. They're very powerful. We get a lot of turnout. My work is also very popular. People will contact me for private sessions from all over the planet, whether we do Skype or Zoom, or people who can come to me in person. And by the way, before I get to the end of our show, I am offering 25% off of a private session with me, good through the end of the year. Just mention that you watch this show and call 877-242-5721 or email us at info@lightnews.org. That was a shameless self-promotion, but we learned a long time ago that if we don't promote ourselves, then we don't pay for airfare or gasoline or the means to travel to different places, like going to Calgary. And you should know that if you ever had any interest in joining ICT, joining integrative chakra therapy and becoming a student yourself, there's 2 options that you have. And the second option is very fascinating because it only came up a couple years ago. The first option is to sign up for the course. And so we have physical courses starting up in San Diego and in Calgary in January and February of 2019. And I've also taken on a student here and there. It's not very common, but I am occasionally taking on students to personally mentor as ICT students. And that is where the student comes to me and we do an intensive session and then they practice and then we practice together from time to time. I have a new student coming in mid-December who's going to start this mentorship track with me. So this is very exciting. I don't do it all that often because it would spread me too thin, but every once in a while, some students with exceptional abilities show up and I will mentor them. You know, I have to tell you that I was once a manufacturing engineer. I worked for a company in the 80s called General Dynamics Space Systems Division. I had final assembly for space launch vehicles, been to Vandenberg Air Force Base, of course, Cape Canaveral, right on the launch site, several times. And it was quite a prestigious honor to work on programs such as the Space Shuttle and also a program we had called the Atlas and Shuttle Centaur, which was a space launch vehicle that would send satellites into orbit and also interplanetary missions as well. And then I worked for a company called United Technologies Advanced Systems Division. And so being an engineer has been really interesting. And you know, any of you out there who are engineers, you know how sometimes the mind works. It wants to take everything out and slice it and dice it. And also to sometimes we tend to over sophisticate things that are actually quite simple. Some of you are probably nodding your head saying, yep, I know that. Oh, look, we have some people showing up here. Hello, Michelle and Anne-Marie Hennessy. Yes, hello. Hi, how are you? So nice to see you on the program. If you have any questions, let me know. Glad you could catch me live. So anyway, you know, I go to Canada quite a bit. I've been going to Calgary now 19 years. And the first time I went was in September 1999, and that was because I was already going to a place called Chilliwack, east of Vancouver, to be presenting at a conference. So one of my clients said, well, as long as you're going, go to Calgary. So I did, and it clicked. And I ended up going like 7 times a year to teach new students. In fact, I have more students there than anywhere else on the planet. And so in order to come to Canada, instead of just as a visiting lecturer, you can actually apply for a work permit. And because we have NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, you have to specify under which category that you're coming in to have a work permit. You have to display a talent that maybe the average Canadian person doesn't have, or how it economically benefits the Canadian people. So I'm looking through the catalog of descriptions and under what heading I would apply. And it turns out that in my doctorate, most of my classes that I took had a PSY by them, psychology. Didn't know it at the time that it had that classification. So I looked under the psychology classification for NAFTA coming into Canada, and there was one called human development. So I chose that one, and now my work permit says human development. He's an engineer of humans. He's engineering human development. And I should put that on my business card or on ICT. We engineer humans, although it has a kind of a negative connotation when you think about cloning. But actually, you know, we really are helping people to self-empower, to awaken, to engineer a clearer, brighter, more in-depth perspective of who they really are, you know, that we really are luminous beings of light who also have a physical presence, that both of those aspects of you and I really are true. And, you know, I have to tell you, in the position of being a teacher, you know, I've been teaching for many, many years, but teaching this ICT course for almost for 20 years now, is when I look at my students, I can tell, you know, how many people they're going to be helping. And it just makes me so joyous and so happy to be able to teach ICT. I think, you know, I was talking to my wonderful business development individual that I'm working with, and I said, you know, at this point in my life, I really enjoy three things. One, I really like teaching ICT. Two, I really enjoy doing the workshops, you know, the flower readings that I'm known for, that I've been doing for 26 years, the past life workshops, the other workshops like the Mayan calendar and astral travel and so forth. And then thirdly, spiritual private sessions. I get so much joy out of helping people when I see their inner light go on and they make that resonant recognition of their true spiritual power. There's nothing like it at all. So really, really, really enjoy that. We have more people coming on now. Oh, hi, Rayanne. How are you? Nice to see that you're on as well. So I just want to look through my notes here. If you'll please excuse me for looking away from the camera. So anyway, I thought you'd really like that if I was engineering humans, but actually I am. There's time also. We have about 24 minutes, I think, left in our program. So there's also time for a few readings if you like. You're welcome to type in. So please do share this program. The more it is shared, of course, the more popular it becomes. And I'm sorry that you don't have the presence of Deirdre's amazing light. She brings so much joy and light to our program. And but she is out on travel. She's very busy right now. So we'll get her here next week for sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about a program that I'm putting together. It's called Awakening the Master Within. It's about how we all have an inner knower, an inner Christ, an inner Buddha, inner Muhammad, an inner God, if you will. And it's really an interesting program. I remember listening to Wayne Dyer from an older program he had, and some person asked him, he says, what is it that you're after? You know, what do you want? And he says, God realization. And so, you know, Awakening the Master Within is a 6-week online program and a 3-day retreat with me where we will go through, looks like someone is trying. Oh, somebody sent me a photo of a flower. I should tell you before I get much further into the new program that people can send me flower photos because I'm known for flower readings. And so I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't. It's probably baking out the screen. But yeah, please do ask if you'd like a reading. And I will read that flower. I think that's Rayanne's. So that's no problem. So think of this program that I'm going to be putting on as how Deirdre and I are creating online programs where you can benefit from where you live, but also come to me for a retreat. And we will put it either in San Diego, Calgary, or some major city where you can come for a 3-day retreat to concretize what you learned in 6 weeks. So it will be probably an hour and a half worth of lecture, plus experiential exercises, plus a half hour of Q&A, a downloadable workbook, exercises in between the week that'll be in the workbook. And then every program will be also downloadable so that if, for instance, if you can't make it or if you want to review it later, it's easy enough to download. And then we have a 3-day retreat where we do an intensive with me based on incorporating, concretizing, and getting all of those elements of what is it to awaken the master within you. What are the exercises? What are the techniques? What are the methods of focus that you could use to continue that awakening process? You know, what's interesting is if you're listening to this program already, then it means that you are on that queue, that path, that wonderful journey of inner awakening. And it's very, very enticing. You know, one of my favorite saints was Paramahansa Yogananda. And I think it was around 2004, maybe a long time ago now, there was a book published called Conversations with Yogananda. And there was a story where, just to make it brief, this rich fellow goes over to the poor fellow's house and invited for dinner, and he eats the poor man's bread and it's hard and tacky. And then the rich man says, come over to my place. So the poor man goes to the rich man's place and, of course, eats his bread, and it's rich and it's doughy and it's savory. So the idea that Yogananda was saying is once you taste the rich bread of your own spiritual awakening, nothing else will satisfy. And I know that, as you are watching this program, some of you are nodding your head going, yep. Sometimes the price of admission is very high in the spiritual path, but there's nothing like it. I mean, for me and for my beautiful wife, Michelle, there's nothing that we would rather do. We know we came into this lifetime to be spiritual warriors. We know we came here to be of service, that anybody who needed our help, that we would fly to their relief to help in any way we can. Mine happens to be doing the spiritual work based on the chakra centers. Hers is psychology and integrative psychology. And there's so many of you that are listening to the program who have awakening or awakened spiritual gifts. And that's one of the reasons for this program is there's a lot of people that are aware they have an inner master or an inner knower, but they don't know the tools and the techniques to awaken. And as you know, some people are visual, some people are auditory, and we all have different ways of learning. So I'm going to give you a multifaceted approach to learn. So for more information, just stay tuned. We will be posting it on our website, www.lightnews.org. And you can always email me at info@lightnews.org, and we're happy to respond to all of your questions. There's another program in the works that we're just wrapping up, which is an online tarot course. The tarot cards. Almost everybody has heard of tarot cards. I can remember years ago starting out, that was all I ever did was tarot card readings, and I was fascinated. And there's several different decks that you can buy nowadays, the proliferation. There's hundreds and hundreds of types of tarot cards, from nature cards to cosmic cards to you name it. So there's 2 online courses that we're going to be launching very soon for you. The tarot course doesn't have an intensive in-person workshop, although we can arrange to have one for you as well, depending on student interest. So it's something that you're welcome to get a hold of us and ask lots of questions. So let me see if we've got more here. Oh, that's very inventive. Anne Marie, you sent a little picture of a flower. That's wonderful. And, as we progress further and further down the digital road to success, meaning there are more and more ways to be truly interactive in our digital world. And so I know that as Facebook and Zoom and other platforms keep improving, our ability to be truly interactive and for me to bring you on. So for instance, the last couple of shows where we were broadcasting through the phone, I was able to bring people on, like Deirdre, I could bring on with a live photo, a live video rather. So we will continue to work in that way to make our programs more and more interactive so that we can be there for you. I just want to make sure I've mentioned everything before I go into the reading, so please excuse me for looking into the notes. Awakening the Master Within is a 6-week online program and 3-day retreat, and that so stay tuned. We're going to be launching that in the new year. And private sessions, 25% off. Just mention today's show and let me know. info@lightnews.org. The Light News Institute website is also being built in addition to our Light News website. And we do have a section called Dr. J's Cosmic Circle. And for a fee, you can be part of that circle, which gets you into parts of the website that have writings and meditations that the public normally doesn't see. Also, a percentage off for future events. And with Dr. J's Cosmic Circle, you get 5 complimentary meditations, an I Can Relate book, a Eye of the Lotus book, a CD of the Crystal Bowls of Tibet, and whatever else I think I can throw in for you. So let me do a couple of readings and then I'll do some future events. Okay, excuse me. Just a drink of water to clear my throat because I've been talking so long. Okay, so I want to start with this flower. I'm not going to turn the phone around and blind you, But there's a lovely flower here that this person sent. I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably can, but it's probably blurring out the camera. To me, it looks like a jade plant, which I really like jade plants. It's a succulent. And when I was a little boy, I found that you could take a piece of the jade plant off and you could put it in the ground and another jade plant will grow up. And I found that about geraniums too. Thought as a little boy, I was really onto something, that you could make new plants out of little plants. And so the feeling on this plant is that there's really not a lot of new information, but a kind of like a bringing up of old information, things that need to be cleared. It's kind of like when I was a little boy and we were Catholics then. So my mom would take me to church on Sundays, and in Catholic churches, they have pews made out of wood, long benches that are hard to sit on. And of course, when you're a little boy or a little girl, you're bored out of your mind because you don't get the relevance of the teachings. And so I can remember, sitting in church, and every once in a while, I'd be thinking, when in the world is this going to be over? When's it going to be done? And, if you get really honest with yourself, when you're a little kid, you get bored easily. You don't see the relevance of the message. And so the reason it's relevant to this, and you can see it that way, huh? The reason why it's relevant to this particular flower, I believe this is Rayanne's flower, is because it's a readdressing of an old energy that you would feel would block you from addressing the older ideas. Like if I go back into the age that I was and the way that the Catholic people looked at, let's say, energy work in those days, I have had people tell me that, what I do is of the devil, and leads people down the wrong path, and that sure, it looks good, but it's really wrong. And of course it's not, because it's meant to uplift people. And in my language, points them towards God even more strongly than ever before. I mean, I'm the one that says, let's get real focused. And it's interesting too, because in this world, a lot of times when we use words like God, it's like it's too intense. We should just use word like spirit. But I like the word God because it's very clear what it means, right? To a lot of people in the West, God means a fellow that created Adam, a person. In the East, God means the ineffable, the all, the emptiness, non-dual. And so it means many things to many people. So this is basically about letting go of old ideas or concepts that may have been true at one time, but now that are ready to splinter. And so when something splinters, it comes apart. So when something was like this and it splinters, you can start to see the light. So what you're doing is you're poking little bits of light into the minds of people and letting their light come forth when they might be really, really resistant initially. But, even to have the conversation, is poking holes in the teacup. That's a Japanese saying for you're poking the ego. And once you crack it, it can only crack more. So I'll leave you in light with that and say bless you and thank you. I've got a little picture of a flower here. And that's from Anne Marie. And that feels like you are doing a blessing on a young person. It feels like you're the one who's doing the healing. And your question is it effective? So what my sense perception is that this icon of a flower that you sent me is really not so much about you, but it's about how you're wanting to be more effective in what you do, in how you help other people. And the image of the little boy is like a symbol for your work being very pure, and knowing that your work has this purity of intent, a kind of a safety and a security that you're doing the right thing. So that's related to this chakra here. This is called the throat chakra. It's also called Vishuddhi. And it represents comprehension. But, one of the teachings of the throat chakra is not whether you have intuition, but it's whether you trust the intuition that you have. And so in order to establish that your work with other people, especially this image, this symbol of a little boy, which represents purity, is more about you assuring yourself that you're trusting your intuition, not just overthinking something and not just putting your mind to say, okay, I got to work my way through this with my head, but surrendering to what your intuition tells you. In the same way that if I'm teaching integrative chakra therapy, surrendering to the zeitgeist, the consciousness of the moment, where is my group's mind and how can I best reach their mind when I'm teaching? So the more you surrender to that higher level of comprehension through your intuition, the more you'll just know that your work is effective. I found it interesting too, because when I looked at the icon of the flower, I realized it wasn't so much about you, but it was more about how you could be effective and how other people are receiving your work. So to that extent, I also feel, Anne-Marie, that more people are going to be coming into your life looking for healing from you. So expect to be busier. Okay, so let me move on. This is for Michelle. Michelle says, I don't have a flower at this moment, but would love a quick reading. You have time today. Okay, so let me just tune into you, Michelle. You remind me of a person who's sitting on a balcony looking out over water, like looking out over the river or the lake, and just absorbing how very beautiful it is. Kind of like how we get that far off look in our eyes about how wonderful this is and how that looks and how that appeals to us. And the energy, of course, my basis is the chakras and the consciousness in the chakras. So the second chakra is the one below the navel. And in a word, it's creativity, but it's also burdens, responsibilities, sexuality, sensuality. It's kind of like the salsa of what it is to be a human being. It's more connected to the five senses than any other chakra. And so in that respect, it feels like you are kind of wondering what to do next. What to do next. It's like you're looking out over the waters of your emotions and deciding, what do you want to invest yourself in? And so it feels on the other side of the equation that, there's other people that are looking to you to help them. So it's like, you're thinking, what do you want to do? But it isn't all exactly matching what everybody else wants you to do. So, they have a saying by the Rinpoches. They say, in the end, it's between you and God. It's not between you and anybody else. So when it's in the second chakra, it's usually related to creativity through passion. So ask yourself, what is your passion? What do you feel is going to be most rewarding to how you want to express your passion to the world? Because that can be very contagious. If you're doing something that you're very passionate about, whether you say, I love tattooing people, or I'm an esthetician, or I'm a healer, or I'm a builder, or whatever that may be, take a look at what are you passionate about doing right now. So as you look out over the metaphorical waters, what do you see yourself doing? What is that? And then follow that, and follow it assiduously, fervently, completely, because that will lead you to explore the depth of your own passion for something. It's like me. Look at me with all these books behind me and all of the events that I've been doing with my life as far as helping people metaphysically in this lifetime. And I seem to have done okay so far. I like to say, God got me this far. God will get me the rest of the way. But at the same time, I'm very passionate about this work. I couldn't think of doing anything else with my life. Although I am connected to the California Institute for Human Science, I am lead faculty there, so I'm a professor there, but I'm also the chair of the board of directors, so we have a lot to say about how that institute is run and where it's heading and so forth. So, with these different passions, you feel more fulfilled. And so my message to you is, Michelle, my message to you is to follow that passion. And you can weigh what people want of you, but look into your heart and say, well, okay, does that match the direction of your passion? Is what you're doing at this moment helping people more? And if you're not living your passion, then if you were, would that be helping them more? So just take a look at that, go into meditation and take a look at that. Okay? All right. I think that's everybody so far. Um, just a couple of announcements because we're getting close to the end here. What events do we have planned? Well, I just came back from Calgary after a very, very active 6 days. In 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I did 36 readings. There were 25 past life readings and 11 flower readings. So it was a very, very active time. Tomorrow night, here in Vista, which is northern San Diego County, we're doing a flower reading November 24th. That's tomorrow night, and we're running a 2-for-1. So that is two people can have their flowers read for $50 instead of the normal price of $50 each. We have an astral travel workshop on November 30th, and that's at Healing Therapies in La Mesa, which is eastern San Diego County. I'm doing an all-day mediumship workshop on December 1st at Healing Therapies. That is going to be a lot of fun. The teaching you how and what mediumship is and allowing you to give some readings, teaching you how it's done in a very safe way, and giving readings in both on the spot, but also what are called billet readings, which are little pieces of paper that are folded up and you read from, but you don't know who asked the question. So that's an all-day workshop from 10 to 4, December 1st at Healing Therapies in La Mesa. If you want information, just go to my website, lightnews.org, or give us a call at 877-242-5721. And then it's back to Calgary, December 5th through the 11th, where we'll be doing more workshops, another astral travel workshop, where in the first workshop that I mentioned, what did I say? I said on November 30th, that's here in Vista, I will teach you what astral travel is, how it's done. I will take you on some very safe journeys. And the same thing when I'm in Calgary, we will be doing free healing work. I will have workshops there, flower readings, astral travel, and of course available for private sessions, both here in San Diego personally, in Calgary personally, and also, of course, by phone, Skype, and Zoom. So those are some of the offerings that are coming up. Deirdre and I are always filling the queue with more and more offerings. There is a Mayan calendar revisited workshop that's coming up very soon. If you look on the extensive calendar page of the website, lightnews.org, www.lightnews.org, you'll see quite a listing of offerings that we have. There's a lot of blog posts on there that are there for your reading pleasure. The free healings, the first and third Mondays in San Diego, the second and fourth Mondays in Calgary. So there's just a lot that we offer. And as Deirdre and I would always say, we really have a lot on the go. And so I very much appreciate you. I thank you so much from my heart for listening to Light News Radio. We are here to serve you. That's our job. We are here to serve you. So if you have any questions or comments, let us know, info@lightnews.org, or call us 877-242-5721. And the website is www.lightnews.org. If you would like to be a guest on our radio program, or if you know of someone who would like to be a guest, just let us know. Give us an email or a call, and we'll talk to you and see if it's a fit. And so, as always, thank you so much for listening to Light News Radio, Realms of Self-Empowerment. I'm your host, Dr. J, and my wonderful co-host, Deirdre, will be on next week. And so, as always, may the principles of harmlessness and compassion be the ever-present, ever-constant guide of your every intention, of your every thought, and of your reaction. And so it is, and so it shall be. It is done. Stay attuned, everyone, and thank you for listening. Bye now.